Welcome to the What's Lacking podcast. It's your host, Larry Atencia. With me today is Jordy Atencia.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yes, and this is Jordy's second appearance on the podcast. Today, I wanted to do a second part to our first conversation just so that it could be on the video YouTube channel as well, just because the first podcast was just audio. Care to give us a brief rundown of what you've been up to since the last podcast?
Mostly just working. I'm out here trying to build a foundation for a stable future. So it's been a lot of work, a lot of self work as well, and understand myself and become a better version of myself.
Oh wow. Oh yeah, wow. Okay. That's a good answer. Very mature and deep. I don't
Yeah.
know what I expected, but do you have any hobbies?
So, yes, but I haven't been practicing them very recently due to the amount of working that I have been doing. But it's something that I am trying to get back into. Throughout high school, I got really into ping pong randomly. I don't know how necessarily that happened, but I just would start playing every Thursday. And then eventually a ping pong club did start up in my high school. So I just got really into it. And it was just like a nice space to meet people and just have fun. So I did ping pong a while. I consider it a hobby, not many other people do, but I'm really much enjoy going out to eat and like trying new places. I feel like in a way it could kind of be a hobby, maybe if I start reviewing places, but I just like enjoy experiencing new foods, new experiences and things like that.
Yeah,
But
it's definitely a hobby. It's expensive.
yeah,
So I think that's the reason why people are kind of like they don't necessarily use the word hobby when talking about being a foodie or just liking to go different restaurants and going to different places for food because yeah it's a lot of money. It's an expensive hobby, but yeah, I,
yeah.
I would say for sure it's a hobby.
But then also throughout this year, I've always kind of enjoyed soccer, playing the video game version of it and watching it, not so much the in-person act. But I have a friend from college who's really into like indoor and outdoor leagues, and he was like, just come, like this one's pretty beginner friendly. And so over the past year, I did an indoor and an outdoor like 6v6 league. And that was pretty fun. Like that was, I probably will continue to do that. I wasn't able to continue the other league because it just wasn't coinciding with my work schedule. But eventually I do think I can see myself doing that again. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, I tried doing it. It takes a lot physically.
Yeah, my body was not prepared. I still have knee pain.
Right, yeah, and then just cardiovascularly, it also just was really rough on me. And then after work, etc.
Mhm.
And I did it with another podcast guest, Carly, and yeah, it didn't last long. I did enjoy it. I think if I did it again now, I'd probably do a better job, and and I'd be physically much more able to.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of like trying to find a team and getting people, etc. As a matter of fact, I don't think Carly's doing it anymore. But yeah. So what does it mean to be a good person to you? That was a hard pivot.
Hard transition. So
Yeah.
good. I feel like that's a question that I've been dealing with quite a bit recently due to the whole like trying to become the best version of myself. And I'm like, how I feel like I've always strived to be the best person that I could. In a way, it was kind of selfish at first because there was like a view of what you put out, you get back eventually. And so it was like, why not just be the best person that you can? And so I think the biggest like memory I have of that was when I was applying to college, whenever I was going out and there was somebody that was like asking for change or asking for food, like I was always go out of my way to make sure like, all right, let's put as much good out there and see if this comes back eventually. And so at that point, it was just like doing whatever you can. I think similarly now, it's just like I'm definitely in a place of, I'm in a much more stable place and I can also give more than just money now. And it's like a lot of friends are going through a lot of deep stuff. And it's just like just being there for people that you care about, is being there to be a pillar of support is really what is for me makes you a good person. It's not a financial thing. It's not like anything. It's just showing up and being there for someone and being there for people. And I think this goes into like another question that we'll eventually get into, but it's just like we're all eventually like if you zoom out enough, we're all part of one community, which is like an earth community. And then like there's smaller sub communities in that. And it's just like trying to do the most good in each one of those whenever possible.
Yeah, so it seems that your idea of being a good person initially was tethered to a selfish idea of
Definitely.
receiving rewards from virtuous acts.
Mhm.
And now it's just like just doing the acts for the intrinsic value that comes with seeing others benefit from what you're doing. I mean, it's a difficult, I think, question because ultimately one has to have some level of selfishness
Yeah,
and
definitely.
individuality that's tied to one's idea of altruism or helping others in order for it to be effective or in order for you to even have the motivation and incentive to want to help, but maybe not going too far in one direction is the place to be in order to make that sort of altruism more effective.
Yeah, it's
um,
about finding the balance and
right.
everything. Funny you bring up altruism because I always remember my biology 102 course when we were talking about altruism and how basically biologically altruism initially doesn't make any sense because it's like we are beings and our main goal is to survive. So why would you ever kill yourself in order to make other people survive? But biologically, all that matters is your genes being passed down. And so there's like literally a formula for at what point altruism is beneficial and not beneficial. So it's like if it's a completely random animal that's not related to you at all, there's no point in doing it. If it's your sibling, they have half of your genes. So if you're saving three siblings, that's three times your genes that are getting passed on. And at that point, it was like, all right, biologically, you can sacrifice yourself for that. And then it's like the number increases as you get further down, like the cousin and second cousins. But there's like literally a mathematical formula to altruism. But
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily, in a way, we always kind of feel more for our family as humans. I'd say I definitely have more selflessness when it comes to like family than I do my friends and stuff. But yeah.
That was spoken like a true Darwinian. That's obviously the premise of Richard Dawkins's Selfish Gene book. I would say that the theory selfish genes and game theory sort
Mhm.
of ideas inherent in like the new biological synthesis is appealing and makes rational and mathematical sense, but I do think there's something in there that rubs me the wrong way in terms of just making it all about just the amount of genetic in percentages genetic relationship between oneself and others, just because we're siblings. This is my brother and we share 50% of our genes, but my mom also shares 50% of my genes. And I
Mhm.
don't think that I feel the same for you that I do for my mom. Right.
Yeah.
And same for a mother, even though she shares only 50% of our genes, I do think that there's a maternal drive towards complete and utter sacrifice
Yeah.
for the life of their children and offspring. And so I think that idea right there sort of goes against selfish gene idea.
Do you think that has like is your point against it? Is it simply only for us humans? And do you think like our consciousness and our ability to like, understand is part of the reason that it doesn't apply completely to us? Or do you think throughout biology it's something that's should be seen as not just like a mathematical formula or a theory?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously out of my depth here,
Yeah.
and you've done more reading on this, although, I like to think of myself as a well-read and intelligent individual. So I do think that the sort of mathematical and game theory reduction of altruism in humanity and individuals is a bit too convenient in order to just uphold Darwinism and just the idea of competition and selfishness. But I'm not sure that it has to do necessarily with a human spirit or soul or just this complete difference between us and the animal kingdom and the material realm. I just think that maybe there is something to that. Maybe it's just we've evolved differently because somehow, some way, culture became much more dominant and just the more biologically imperative drives towards survival. But yeah, so I'm not sure where I would land on answering that question in terms of it being some sort of spiritual or religious base for being anti Richard Dawkins or Darwin, or that they don't necessarily take culture seriously enough, and how it's sort of shifted and changed us in fundamental ways that don't necessarily allow for us as a unique species to fit patently into the biological Darwinian paradigm. So I don't know. I've so I read Richard Dawkins maybe 2 years ago, a year ago. I like the book. I don't want to, be on the
Yeah.
podcast saying that I'm anti biology or that evolution is wrong or that I'm, for intelligent design. But I have read some critiques that to me were amazing and fulminating from atheists, which made the case in a much deeper, better, more intelligent, more well thought out way than I was able to. But so yeah, so I do think that there's something in evolution. I do think that rationalism and science and game theory are all very much part of our toolbox as human beings. But I do think that we don't need to, like we were saying, go to the other side where all of those things that I just enumerated become a form of scientism and reductiveness into, well, this is just the answer, and we're all just being manipulated and controlled by genes inside of us who just want us to reproduce blindly and without our conscious will.
I like the that you said toolbox. That's like a really good way of it. It's just like one of the tools that we have to try to understand the human experience. I'm also part of that. It's one of several ways to view the world. I don't think even as a biology major, we can explain everything through science. So it's just, we're all just trying to understand everything here. And it's just trying to find different ways of explaining it. So
That's true, yeah. And for me, it's an interesting place where this went because I sent you some of the questions that we were going to have, but it seems that whenever we have conversations, there are these interesting side
tangents.
tangents and side conversations that emerge, which I'm never prepared for. And so I feel really bad that I'm going to sound stupid and uneducated, and my positions are going to be misinterpreted. But if you have any sort of question or comment, or you'd like to set me straight,
Get on the
or
podcast.
yeah, get on the podcast, please, if you're listening.
No, I think
But
part of it is the whole casual conversation, right? It's like this isn't,
it's
we're
true.
not in some type of academic setting where we need to be right about everything. It's just talking.
That's true. That's true. But there is part of me that has always emphasized and thought of himself as a well-rounded, cosmopolitan, intelligent person. And so I'd like to be able to extemporaneously talk intelligent about any topic when it comes up. And the fact that I'm not able to eats me inside. But that's the life that I was given. That's the intelligence that I was given, and I just need to accept it. What gives your life meaning and purpose today?
Directly, I think family has always been a very big thing for me, and just my connection with everybody. And then not so like physical, but something about thinking about the future makes today so much more important in a way. Like there's so many things I want to do, and I know that all of that starts today, right? Like it's your actions that you do today and in the everyday that eventually will lead you to those goals that you eventually wish to have. And so this is like a new way of me trying to think of the today and like doing something to better yourself every day in order to reach that. So my purpose right now, I'm like, yes, family. I love being able to talk with you guys, see you guys, interact with you guys. And then also being able to realize like today is just as important as any other day. And you need to make the most of today because you have all these goals, all these wishes, all these dreams that you want to aspire to. So it's like viewing the things in the future that I would like to do, like to experience, and doing what I can today in order to reach those things, and family. I guess those are my two answers.
What does it mean to be happy?
I think that's probably going to be the hardest one.
I don't think anyone has ever given the ultimate answer to that question.
Yeah.
Some good answers, but just no ultimate answer.
One of my things that I needed to realize recently was we experience many different things at the same time. And so basically I was going through like a tough time recently, and it was just like a lot of negative emotions. And it's easy to like focus on all the bad shit that's happening in your life, right? So it's just like this happened, like everything's going wrong. But it's always difficult to take a step back and like realize the good things that are still there. And I think part of happiness is choosing to view the good things whenever possible, because they're always there. And that's something that is, like I said, especially for me, difficult to understand. There's always like a reason for you to be happy in life. And there's always something there. Well, for the most part, obviously not every situation, but you're always experiencing several things. And sometimes you do have the option to focus on one thing or another. And I think finding a balance where you can be like, I'm sad, but I still have a roof over my head. I have financial stability, and I have my family and this pillar of support. And it's just like putting those things to the forefront and being able to appreciate those things, even in your darkest moments. I think that's where I view happiness coming from. It's almost not always a choice, but it definitely is something that you can practice and become happier if you try. The actual, like, what is happiness? That I don't know if I have an answer for that. Like, it's like we can feel happiness, but what is it actually? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think I wholeheartedly agree with how you framed it, which is to be grateful and to put everything in perspective all the time. For me, recently, and I think it goes to the beginning of this conversation, which is not becoming so navel gazing and narcissistic that you're not able to see from a global perspective or historical perspective how well you have it.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's obviously a difficult position to take. And I think that knowledge isn't the only thing that's necessary in order to have that perspective and that position. Experience is also, necessary in order for you to start appreciating and just understanding where you are, how you fit in the world, in a sort of ranking, and then historically as well. So I've changed my perspective a lot on just progress, technology, capitalism, growth. And what I've realized lately is that, okay, I go to sleep and I have heat, and I have an accumulation of food that no one 200 years ago would have even dreamt of. I have the ability to talk to you and have this conversation 10 miles away, but I could also be having it with someone that's 3,000 miles away. I have a car. I have the ability to, if I get fired tomorrow, have enough intellectual capital and personal skills to be able to feel secure and confident that even though it's going to be a stressful, pressure-filled situation because of mortgage and payments and buying stuff, I still know that I'd be able to land on my feet. And so those are all things that in America most people have the ability to do, and in developed countries as well, they also have the ability to do. And so I think that we are so financially secure, and we are so comfortable physically, emotionally, etc., that sometimes because of how we've biologically evolved, perhaps we are always looking for ways to feel somehow like we need to be surviving, or that we are somehow struggling against something in order to feel alive, or to feel something. But I do think that if we just step back, reflected, and put ourselves in a global historical perspective, we'd be very, very, very glad, happy, and joyful about where we are, and who we are, and where we stand.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I don't know why, but it just made me think about like not so long ago, giving birth was like an easy way for women to constantly die. It was like it wasn't a safe thing. Like giving birth literally killed a lot of people. And now it's just like, yeah, she just went into labor. I guess it's popped up because
Yeah.
one of my manager's wives went into labor yesterday. It's just like we take these things and it's just like, yeah, she'll give birth. She'll be back in like a month or so. But it's like, bro, like a couple centuries ago that we don't know if she would have made it through that.
No, yeah, it's true. Yeah, we take so many advancements and just so many good things for granted. And I think in one of my podcasts that was a part of our conversation, which was also like just child mortality, and the ability for a child from 0 to like 10 to make it historically was like below 35%. Like every child that you had like a 65% chance I mean, a 35% chance of like dying within
Mm-hmm.
5 years. Like that's crazy. And it just created the idea, maybe in the past, where you needed to be strong, you needed to be stoic, you needed to accept the fact that life was short, brutish, nasty. And maybe we evolved to just sort of, unless things are the greatest of the greatest and you are somehow like an aristocrat and the richest like that, we are just wired to not feel happy because that just never was the way in which we evolved or had ever lived in our past. So maybe there is something to that idea, because our living standards today as non-rich Western individuals is higher than what the richest king, queen, aristocrat, royalty that lived 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, higher than their standards. And that's
Definitely.
insane. And people are, not taking that into consideration when they're just complaining about, maybe I don't want to derail this again, but like microaggressions or,
Yeah.
silly things, So I don't know. But again, it's like, how do you tell a 23-year-old person to take this perspective when, it just seems like a stage of life in our youth to just be fully immersed, fully worried about one's position in one's life. And yeah, we're just fully narcissists in most of our youth, and that's something that we need to grow out of. So I guess that's where wisdom comes in.
Like you said, experience too, just like going through life, you see a lot of things. And I was thinking a lot while you were speaking. I'm just thinking about everybody from like Necoclí and Arboletas, which are necessarily living below our means. But I think I've seen some of the happiest people that I know living in those towns still. And it's like they don't have as much as we have. They don't have the technology or like the infrastructure that we do here, but yet they still manage to find the fine things in life. And they're happy. Like, yeah, I work a couple days a week. I have enough to go out on the weekend and have a good time. And that's all right with me. And I'm like, it all comes down to perspective. It really does.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, if you feel like you're living a good life and you're enjoying what you're doing, it's going to be better for you overall. And I think part of the difficulty over in the US is that we are like constantly fed all these images of like grandeur. It's so easy to see like mega rich people on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and you're like, why can't that be me? Where you could easily just like pivot, and there's so many things that you are avoiding by just being here. And like I said, just choosing the correct perspective is probably the best way to keep yourself happy.
Right. Yeah. And comparing yourself to the polished images presented to you on media, through media, is going to, yes, cause you to feel that you're somehow lacking in things. But if you, like you said, but if you pivot and just looked at, let's say, the living standards or Cambodia or the Congo, then you're like, you know what? I'm not a Kardashian, but it's okay.
I'm definitely well off. Yeah.
Right. And so, and even traveling through Colombia, yeah, they're happy, but I think it's a happiness that comes from the struggle and knowing that, okay, I've been hustling for the past few, I'm gonna just party this weekend and I'm going to just enjoy life as it is, as opposed to us here where we're so caught up in our minds, we're so caught up in creating narratives and stories because there is no struggle. There is no hustling. There is no, I mean, I guess some people do experience that, but to the extent that outside of America they do, I don't think they do. But again, like I said, it's hard to begrudge and to blame people who, have it worse than we do, who are feeling like they're having to struggle and hustle and live precariously. Although I don't know, I'm in a place in my life where I'm like, you have the ability to not be living that way, especially considering where you are. I don't know, but you want to add something extra before we move on to that question?
No, I think we're good. I think we can move on.
Yeah. How many close friends do you have?
So again, like I feel like you've gotten me at a very transformative part of my life. And so I recently have been putting in the effort to like rekindle my friendships because I definitely felt that I've been lacking in effort in them. And so I would consider that I have a good like 5 to 6 close friends. And I felt recently like I was letting them down in a way by not, like they would constantly reach out and try to do things. And I was just like, no, like I'm working all week, I'm tired, all this stuff. And like, it's not like I wasn't trying to be like nasty or anything. It was just like I just didn't have the ability or like the effort to reach out or to do things. But throughout just this past month or so, like some stuff happened and I realized like these are like my supports and these are the people that legitimately care about me and I care about. And I should definitely put in the effort, make the time to keep those friendships alive. And so to answer the question, I'd say like 5 or 6. One of them is in California, which makes things a little difficult just time wise and being so far, but they're doing well enough where they try to come visit at least once a year. And I've gone over there a few times already. So that one I definitely feel very confident in, but it's like, I feel the Philly friends are the ones that are easy to forget about just because they're always here. So you don't feel as required to like do things all the time. But I'm definitely at a point where I'm putting in the effort and I can see it. And it's making me happy to see my friendships blossom back into what they once were after like a period of neglect, I guess is the word. But I realized friends are like one of your chosen family, right? Like, again, it all comes down to that family point. It's like some of the most important things to me. And then those are the things that bring me happiness. And I need to keep with the blossoming analogy, water those friendships.
How would you describe those, 5, 6 friendships?
Well, let's see. Most of them came from my college living situation. My last 2 years, I lived off campus, and so we just shared a home. Basically, when you share a home with somebody, like you're going to become very close, obviously.
Not all,
Um,
not always, but yeah.
I mean, there was arguments and everything, but that's just part of the experience of having friends and just living together with different cultures, different people. There's different ways, but it's the communication and the working everything out that like strengthens those friendships. 2 of them were business majors. One was a psych major, and then another one is a biology major. And so I kind of got a good little breadth of conversations there. I am lucky enough where I can say that I feel like they're intelligent people and I can have like deep conversations with them. Whereas some friendships you just kind of just sit there and like small talk the whole time, which isn't necessarily what I'm looking for right now, but it has its place. But obviously these are close friends. So these are the people that you're gonna have like those conversations about life's meaning and life's perspectives and things like that. So I feel very lucky to have people that I can have these conversations with because it wasn't always like this. In Philly public school, people aren't normally trying to have very deep conversations, I'd say. And if they were, those were the people that I was having friendships with anyways. But there's a good amount of men and women there. So those perspectives are also available. And I feel like also there are some more close friendships on the rise currently, which I guess that's what happens when you are starting to reach out to those friendships that you used to have before. Like the ones that weren't so deep and something happens and then like you guys can just slowly start building upon it. And I definitely do feel like right now I'm in a place of friendship growth and like developing a lot of different friendships. And it's something that I'm very happy with and something I'm very proud of.
How have you changed in the last few years?
I've been talking with my therapist for almost a year now. And I kind of have themed this year a year of change for me. So change has been almost constant basically since my parents left because of just everything basically from that moment it's just started changing. So I basically have stayed like mentally. How have I changed? Let's see. Definitely my perspective on life has changed a lot. My perspective on like my relationships as per the reaching out to people and trying to maintain everything because I realized that I was neglecting things. I've stopped being so hard on myself, which I think is a big thing because I think from a very young age, I always expected myself to like do the best in everything. Mostly it was school and just like being able to be top of my class and get A's all the time. And recently that mentality was a reason behind me wanting to like not go to med school because there was a bit of a unknown and was like, am I going to be able to succeed if I do go through this rigorous curriculum? And that was one of the main reasons I went to therapy was because I was having this like dilemma. I was like, my whole life, I was like, I want to go to med school. And now I'm at like the door and I don't know whether I should pursue it anymore. And so that was kind of a scary thought. And I got to the point where I was like basically coming up with all the excuses possible to not do it. And I was like, oh, look at all these doctors talking about how they regret it. Look at all these people saying like it's such a stressful place. But I think ultimately with enough introspection, I just realized that I was scared and that I was unsure if I'd be able to make it. But I think my job experience has kind of enlightened my path, because I just don't want to be in, like, my job has not fulfilled me at all, and it's just I'm going in doing the bare minimum to get paid, and then I'm leaving, and I'm like, I can't see myself doing this for 30 years. And through a lot of, just like I said, reflection and just conversations, I was like, I think med school is definitely a challenge I need, and it's a challenge that I'm looking forward to now. And as long as I'm putting my best foot forward, whatever happens, I'll be happy with that. I think that's one of the main changes over the past couple of years, was the whole med school idea of like whether I was going to go or not. And I think just becoming older, like obviously I'm only 25 years old. Like I understand I'm very early in my life, but from like 2 years ago, there's a very, like, I've matured quite a bit, I'd say, just because like the perspectives I have now, and it's just like there's things I did before and I was just like, what was I thinking? Like, what's going on? Like, why would you do that? And obviously, what is it, hindsight is 2020, but I can legitimately say like I wouldn't do that now. And it's just like through experience and just living life, like you learn. And so that, and family too, I've realized that, like I said, I've been in need of support and those pillars. And I realized, like, I think I get this from our mother, but I just very much have a strong connection to you guys. And I feel like that's another relationship that I haven't been watering much recently. And that's why I decided to like start reaching out, and I wanted to like do things, because I was like, at the end of the day, these are people that I genuinely care for and I genuinely have love for. And they're people that I want to maintain a good relationship with. And that's just another part of the growth. And it's just like reaching out. And I was like, I'm feeling this, I'm going to reach out. There's no reason for me to be bottling things up anymore. And I guess that's one of the benefits of therapy as well. I definitely used to be the type of person to bottle everything up and kind of just deal with things alone until either I forgot about it or some solution came about it. And you realize things, you never really forget about things that you don't resolve. They kind of just become subconscious things that will eventually bother you somehow. So I think that's why therapy has been a very good thing for me, because it's just like a consistent space where I can just unleash everything without any fear of judgment, without any fear of like anything. It's just like a safe space where you can just express everything that you're feeling. It's cathartic. I think I'm the type of person where it's just like I just need a space to release everything that I'm feeling. Like not even need, like, obviously the interaction with the therapist and like the conversation is good, but I think even if it was just somebody listening and all I did was just like speak everything out, it's a release and you feel like better after that every time. And so that's another big change. I've been very big on just like speaking my emotions rather than just dealing with them alone.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I think you answered a little bit.
Yeah. So sadly, the medical space takes forever to get through. So I will probably be in some sort of residency program, but optimistically, somewhere that I'm happy, somewhere where I'm being challenged enough where like intellectually I'm fulfilled, and somewhere where I feel like I'm doing the most good that I can in the world.
Pithy and direct answer. I like that. What advice would you give young people about how to best live their life?
Everything's a balance. We have a lot of emotions that we feel at once. There's a lot of people in our lives. There's a lot of goals that we want to reach. But I think the most important thing is finding the balance between everything and making sure that at the end of the day, you're maintaining those people in your life that are important to you, maintaining those friendships alive, which that itself requires balance, right? Because you can easily find yourself giving too much attention to a certain person and everything around you kind of starts deteriorating. So it's just being aware, like be self-aware, be aware of your surroundings as well, and just balance.
I've been huge on balance the last few years and having a sense of finding the correct alchemy, finding the correct mixture, finding the correct combination of all the things that make us human, all the things that make us happy, all the things that build character because of the pain that they make, and that they bring. And so I think it's a lifelong process of trying to find the perfect balance. And in our youth, a lot of times, and even as we get older, we tend to become enamored or become attached to ideas of purity, which sometimes turn us into extremists or dogmatists for certain particular views or ideas or things or emotions. And I think equanimity, balance is where we all should inhabit, and where our best selves are. The symbol of the yin and the yang, and and just Taoism and all these things that a lot of people just see as wooey, silly stuff, are really important in life and in our ability to just remain in a calm, peaceful state while the craziness around us unfolds. And so I just love that you're 25, and every time we have a conversation, I just see how mature and wise you are for your age, you know. So like I remember you saying just right now you're like 25, and even though you're young, just looking back at mistakes and things you were doing, it made me laugh because I mean those, I was 25 and I was like stubborn about continuing to make the same mistakes. I was proud of making the same mistakes. And not only that, I also looked forward to continue making the same mistakes as a form of autonomy that was immature and childish, but in my head, you know, constituted the true way of being independent and self-reliant and doing things my way. And so, yeah, I really appreciate that, and I think if that's where you're at right now, that I'm very excited and happy to see how you continue to develop.
Another point is I recently watched a video essay about the myth of Sisyphus, and it kind of just I really enjoyed it for some reason. I was just like, it's an interesting outlook. It's like it's very easy to, like, at the end of the day, life is just a repetitive cycle of a day after a day after a day. But it's just like you have the opportunity to live every day, and you get to do things, and you should be happy that you have that. And like seeing Sisyphus pushing a boulder up, and you're like, damn, that sucks. But if you just imagine him happy as Camus, imagine Sisyphus happy because he's like, I have a reason to be here. Like I have to push up this boulder, and I'm gonna push up this boulder. And it was like, I'm gonna live every day, and obviously we're not only pushing up a boulder, we're trying to better ourselves every day. But at the end of the day, it is a cycle, and you're gonna do the same couple things every couple of days. Especially now that I'm in like the workforce, it's very easy to see the analogy to that. It's like every day I'm doing the same thing, but I'm here, you know, and like I'm present, and I should be present in that, and I should find the little things that make me happy in that.
Exactly. Finding beauty in the mundane. You know, last podcast with my good friend Eric, we were talking about that. Doing the small things well, being good, not just in the sense of virtue or ethically, but being good in terms of craft and making your life a work of art, and just building on top of the biological material foundations, you know, that cultural carapace makes life just that much better and beautiful and worth living.
I guess
Yeah.
that was an answer to the happiness question. And it's just, it just randomly popped up. So I wanted to bring it up. I was like, yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was 25 and I was reading about Sisyphus, I didn't interpret it that way. I wanted to interpret it in a way that would allow me to continue to just be depressed and, you know,
self-destructive behaviors.
Yeah. Exactly. So, you know, perspective, like you were saying, individualism or collectivism.
I guess it goes back to the balance point, no? But if I had to choose one, I think I'd definitely choose collectivism. Because at the end of the day, like, as much as we are individuals, we are social beings, and we live in a society. And if you're in a group where everybody values the group, eventually the individual isn't going to suffer because everybody's worried about everybody else, you know? So in that view, I feel like if I look out for somebody and I know somebody's looking out for me, eventually everything will be okay.
I mean, this interview is about you and your ideas and your responses, but I'm going to push back, and I would say that, yes, balance, but for me, individualism takes precedence. And I think that goes back to my political and philosophical changes that have occurred in the last few years. Although I think that I've always centered and put the individual first. Although, like you were saying, one's choice of best ways to maximize and to allow for the flourishing of the individual could be very different depending on one's politics and one's view about how to best organize people and how to work together, right? So it's the problem of coordinating free individuals in a voluntary manner. And those are deep questions that maybe we could pursue at a later date in person. But yeah, I think it's interesting that I'm in a place where individualism is what's most important for me. And not to say that collectivism as a result of voluntary association between free autonomous individuals cannot be an answer. But when I was your age, I was definitely in a place where I would have had the same response. And the arrow of causation went the opposite way, where collectivism allows for the flourishing of the individual. And then for me now, it's individualism allows for the flourishing of the group and the community.
Do you think at some point, like, does individualism eventually harm the group? I guess is the question.
No, because it's always easy to have the ability when it's a voluntary association between people to exit and to find another collective or group that one freely chooses to become a part of. I think exit is an idea that's important, and obviously having the ability to exit freely chosen associations is predicated on the idea of non-coercion and not being under the yoke and the power of other entities. You want to say something? Anything else add to that, or?
No, we can move on. That was the question I had.
This is the final question. What's your favorite TV show of all time?
My knee-jerk reaction is Game of Thrones, but I don't know. Probably Game of Thrones. It was like a cultural experience when I was going through it. So it was just very big and everybody was happening. So it was like a show, but also like it was something you experienced at school with even your teachers. It was just crazy.
It was a collective experience.
Yeah, there you go. Obviously, it did not end the way that anybody wanted it to, but those first 6 seasons were something I probably will never forget. And I have gone back and watched it a few times. But if I had to choose something I've watched in the past year, and I've been watching more movies than shows recently. I just posted my top 6 movies on my Instagram. So that was an experience. But show in the last year.
What are your top 6 movies?
I had Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Old Boy, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Spider-Man and Into the Spider-Verse, Come On, that was the Joaquin Phoenix one. I cheated and I put Tampopo and City of God in there as well. Oh, 2001: A Space Odyssey. I did 8.
All right, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, along with 2001: A Space Odyssey. Okay, so like current and classic.
I was trying to get every facet of my life in there somehow. So I was like, all right, what is some science stuff? I just also I listened to Project Hail Mary, and that was fantastic. But that was also basically, it's a sci-fi book about basically aliens coming to our solar system. Well, microscopic aliens eating our sun, basically, and then how we solve that. I wasn't expecting it to be it was 16 hours of straight listening, but it was a very good book.
Sounds like a fun summer beach read.
Yeah.
That was a joke.
What were we talking about last time we were at the beach? Because I saw a guy reading the book. Infinite Jest.
He was reading the book of essays.
I think I was at a coffee shop and there was a guy just outside reading Infinite Jest, and it reminded me of the conversation we were having.
Which was what? Remind me of the conversation.
It was basically you saying how this dude was, for lack of a better word, crazy and just wrote some wild shit. And you thought it was funny that this guy was on the beach where normally one would be trying to have a good time. And he's reading this book of like depressing or life altering essays.
And I don't know if I said crazy. I love David Foster Wallace. So I think it might have been like genius level type of writer, and this person reading at the beach. I don't know. I don't even remember, but I don't want people to get the impression that I was kind of insulting or David Foster Wallace isn't worthy of dropping everything and just reading his whole overall. I keep on saying that word wrong, but you get what I'm saying. It's all collected works. Anything else?
What's your favorite show? Is it still The Wire?
I feel like all the guests keep on asking me questions and putting me on the spot. This is not about me.
It's a conversation. There's always going to be a back and forth.
That's true. As you can tell, I like to be prepared and not be put on the spot. So I think that's my biggest criticism. But no, actually, I have a new favorite show of all time. I love it. I miss it. I wish I could rewatch it all over again, like it was my first time. And that show is Deadwood. Deadwood is just the greatest show ever. I don't think anything will ever come out that will make me feel the way that Edward did, or that I will love as much as I did that show. And I think I watched it last year. I don't know.
Yeah, you told me that you started watching it and you really enjoyed it. I started watching it at work, but then other things came up, so I've never finished it. But it was interesting. I wasn't expecting it to be like a Western show. That's not my wasn't my what I thought. But
No, yeah, it's. I mean, I would give it another. I would give it another shot, right? And it's
yeah,
and it builds up to its greatness. So don't give up on it.
all right, sounds good.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts, comments?
Accept change. Everything comes with a lesson. Every bad, negative experience you have, there's a lesson there to be learned. Just choose happiness.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Thank you for being part of the What's Liking podcast,
Thank you
and
for having me.
we'll see each other soon. Take
Yeah,
care.
for sure. All right, see you.